Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Roof Talk, where we go above and beyond the surface of the construction industry. Today's episode is a very special one. We have someone whose journey has been nothing less than a cinematic. He's a visionary, he's a storyteller, and a co-founder of Anokha Estates. Welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Thank you.
Right. So before we dive into the nitty-gritties of the podcast, please tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Okay, so I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, even though I was born in Chicago.
Okay.
And but I actually have not lived in Phoenix since I was 17 years old, and I'm about to be in a couple of days 61. Right, so that's a long time out of Phoenix. Okay. So most of my career, I was a journalist. Okay, I worked for the Washington Post and the New York Times and CBS News, but most of my career was with the Associated Press.
Wow.
So if you add it all up, I lived 6 years in Colombia,
Nice.
5 years in Venezuela, 2 years in Singapore, 2 years in Indonesia, 6 years in Jerusalem, and now 14 years in Goa. Okay, so I was the Associated Press bureau chief in many of those places, including Jerusalem. Oh, one thing I should point out, that I was, I don't know if you saw that the series Narcos, right? Because I was in Colombia from 89 to 95. So I think the producers of Narcos probably used quite a few of my articles to produce the show, and I kind of lived and breathed Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel for those years. I can get into some of those stories as we talk, right. But then people ask me, well, but now real estate, they ask me, how did you go from journalism to real estate? And I always joke, I say, well, doesn't everybody do that? But in my case, there is some rationality behind it, because my family has been in the real estate business in Arizona for a century.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so we're very active, for instance, in downtown Phoenix still to this day. And so for me to sort of transition to real estate in Goa was not that far of a stretch.
Oh, wow.
And that's what we've been doing for quite some time now.
You were 17, and then you left Phoenix. Was your first job as a journalist? Did you take up your first job as a journalist, or did you do something else?
I went to college. I went to Pomona College, and then I was supposed to become a lawyer, right, an advocate. But instead, I was going to still go to law school, but instead I went to Columbia Journalism School, Columbia University. Okay. And then from there, I just landed a job in Venezuela as a writer in Venezuela.
Oh.
So
American University, and then you land a job in Venezuela in South America. How does that work?
I had spent a semester abroad in Spain, and I always, growing up in Phoenix, we were maybe a 3 to 4 hour drive from the border with Mexico. So I always wanted to sort of be part of that world, the Spanish-speaking Latino, whether it be
I'd say you're fluent in Spanish.
I'm fluent in Spanish, yes. So I, even as a young person, I always had this desire to sort of figure out what's happening on the other side of the border, whether it be Mexico or Venezuela. So then I ended up, it was 11 years between Colombia and Venezuela. So I became very sort of entrenched in that society.
So you said you worked for the Associated Post.
Associated Press. Uh-huh.
So tell me a bit more about that. What is the Associated Press?
Well, the Associated Press, basically, it gives the raw material. It gives the news to the newspapers and the radio stations. Yeah, it's actually the largest and oldest news organization in the world, the Associated Press, because a lot of times if you open the Times of India or the Hindustan Times, a lot of times you're actually reading copy from the AP. Same thing when you watch news footage on television. Much of it comes from the Associated Press, right? So we're call it the raw material of news, right? So I was the Associated Press bureau chief in Caracas and in Jakarta and in Singapore, and then for 6 years in Jerusalem, covering the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Wow. So you know what? As you said, the whole Narcos Netflix season, I'm really excited. I really love that series. So what was it like being in Medellin, being in Colombia, in the Pablo Escobar's reign of terror?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story about Pablo Escobar. So the day that he died, I was in Bogota and I had to get to Medellin, right? And it was I had to catch the last flight to Medellin to get there quickly because he had just died on the rooftop, remember, with a pistol in each hand.
Right.
And it was too late to the airport, and they were just closing the last flight to Medellin. But being the Associated Press, there were 40,000 subscribers expecting the news from me because I was the correspondent in Colombia. So I had this huge pressure to get on the plane, and they told me, plane's full, can't get on the plane. And I threw a tantrum, and I was screaming, you've got to get me on the plane. And someone at Avianca Airlines took pity on me and said, there's one ticket left, but it's closed, the flight. Go over there, go buy it, and we'll see what we can do. I buy the ticket. In those days, I think it was 1993, in those days you could they were a little bit more easy. I stepped onto the tarmac, right? And they were literally, the flight was closed. I couldn't get on the flight, but I was screaming. I said, I have to get on this flight. I threw a tantrum on the tarmac of the Bogota airport. Right. And the staircase was actually coming away from the airplane, and they pushed it back for me and they opened the door and let me on the plane. Because they knew it was about Pablo Escobar, and he had just died, and they knew it was a big story. Yeah. I explained it to them. So they allowed me on the plane. I get to Medellin, and I arrive at the house where Pablo Escobar had just...
You're one of the very lucky ones who got to actually see that.
Yeah, and there was broken glass, blood everywhere, half-eaten hot dog, and and then... the main reason that they caught him, because they traced his phone call, is that he lingered on the phone, right? So, and they talked about a lot of things. It was him and his son. Right. But that morning, I had submitted a bunch of questions to his son for his father to answer. Right. And he was going through not just my questions, other questions from other journalists as well, but it took a long time, and it gave the authorities enough time to trace the phone call. And part of what he was saying was answering my questions, right? So I had a sort of an indirect role.
To do with his
Pablo Escobar.
Wow.
So, but then, lots of other experiences through the years. Yeah, that's being a foreign correspondent, covering Afghanistan, Iraq, and all the different wars.
Before we go into Afghanistan, how was life in Colombia or Medellin back then? Were people really scared all the time, or people went on with their lives? What were your experiences? Because you had to go deep with these cartels. You had to go deep to get the info, to get it back home in America. What was your life, and what was the life of people in Colombia?
Well, this was a very serious situation back between 89 and 95. It was the height of the drug war, and there was something called the extraditables, where first it was, Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel. Yeah. They basically were challenging the authority of the government, right? And so... And they blew up an airline in midair. They killed
an American airline. Is it?
It was I think it was an Avianca airliner. Okay, they killed the main presidential candidate. They killed half the Supreme Court. They were blowing up supermarkets. It was a reign of terror, really. In those days, and then and then there was a lot of pressure to get rid of the Medellin cartel, but then the Cali cartel rose up, right? So, so for me, I mean, that was most of my coverage was about covering the drug wars, in addition to the guerrilla wars, and there was a lot of violence back then. Right. I actually ended up getting death threats myself, and ended up leaving, in 1995, but. I've been back since, and I've really, and after situations improved quite a bit. Still a lot of problems, but it was a great joy for me to go back to Colombia and see a better situation, how the country sort of got out of a lot of that. But then the opposite occurred with Venezuela, because when I was in Venezuela, they call it chévere. It was just a fun-loving, fantastic place, and it had a reputation of being the party central for Latin America, and it was just a delightful country, and still is in many ways, but it was kind of like destroyed, very, very bad problems they've had. And I actually covered Hugo Chavez's initial coup attempt in 1992 when he tried to take over the government, and that's when I first met him. Right. And then I was back there as I was in Venezuela twice in two different stints, and then my second stint is when he rose to the presidency. Hugo Chavez, right? So I got to know him. I had already known him from before. So one of the things I was able to do with Hugo Chavez was to travel with him in Asia on a 2-week trip on the presidential plane, right? Wow. And it was quite something, to just be with Hugo Chavez for a couple of weeks. Like, for instance, I remember we were on the Great Wall of China, and he started sprinting in the middle, while he was visiting, and some Chinese female official was in high heels and felt she had to keep up with them and just fell flat on her face, right? And there was some dicey incidents as well with the Chinese at that point, but overall, it was very interesting to watch him.
What do you think went wrong? Sorry to interrupt you. What do you think went wrong in Venezuela?
Well, what happened was that I think what happened was they instituted certain economic policies that were not sustainable.
Okay.
While he was a very charismatic person, and also I think you could even make the argument that the Venezuelan elite had it coming, because he was the first president to really come up through the people. He was not a rich person, and then rose to the presidency. But I think he instituted policies that just kind of destroyed the markets, and it ended up really hurting Venezuela. And then, of course, he died, and then this Nicolás Maduro took over. We just had the Nobel Peace Prize given to the opposition person in Venezuela, so it's in the news today itself. And that sort of speaks to the feeling, the international feeling at this point that Venezuela really needs to be liberated again. Supposedly Hugo Chavez said he liberated it, but now they need a liberation from Chavismo.
Did you ever get an interview with any of these cartel leaders or anyone close to these guys?
These people did not speak to the press. Okay. So it was not senior ones, but certainly quite a few in the underlings. Was able to talk to quite a few of them.
Okay.
And then I used to have contacts in the cartels,
right.
And I used to have contacts in the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, talking to the top guy actually, and then I remember with the Associated Press years later, I was on the international desk.
Yeah.
And the head of the DEA, the former head of the DEA in Bogota, wanted to write a book with me.
Oh, wow.
About our experiences covering the drug war. And at that point, I was working on the international desk, and I asked the AP, would you allow me to take some time off a little bit and write this book? Mm-hmm. And their answer was no, because now I think that they've softened, but they thought that I would be giving opinions. Right. And they thought it would compromise my journalistic independence, my journalistic integrity.
Makes
so
sense.
they didn't give me permission to write the book, but I think as compensation, within a couple months they appointed me Caracas bureau chief, so that was a promotion.
Okay,
so
fair
I was
enough.
so
worked out in one or the other way.
Yeah.
Wow. So drug lords in Medellin, and then I believe you were in Afghanistan for a while. What were you doing there?
Well, I started going to Afghanistan before 9/11. Okay. When the Taliban were in power, okay, and that was very interesting experiences, obviously. But then what happened was at 9/11, since I had spent months and months in Afghanistan, or a lot of time there, the minute I saw the Twin Towers come down in New York City, my first thought was, oh my God, they're going to take out the Taliban, because the Taliban was harboring Al-Qaeda. So I actually wrote the first international reaction story for the AP at 9/11. So I was working on my computer, my laptop, doing an international reaction story to the attacks, and then within 12 hours, I was boarding a flight to Islamabad, in Pakistan. Wow. And then from there, I was there for a while because no one had to enter because the war was starting. This was like I ended up spending a lot of time in Pakistan at that point, right? But then I knew at some point when they were about to start the war against the Taliban in Afghanistan, I knew I wanted to be in Afghanistan. So I volunteered to go in, even though it was considered quite dangerous at that point.
Well, especially for American prisoners.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I felt that was where I needed to be. So I was actually the first Associated Press print journalist to enter Afghanistan after 9/11, right? But it was a harrowing journey because I had to fly to Russia, to Moscow, and get my gear. And then I flew to Tajikistan, and I had to go over the Hindu Kush mountains, and not all of it was even navigable.
Yeah.
You would have to go there was a Jeep, and there were times we'd have to get out of the Jeep and walk, and they would figure out a way to get the Jeep over these roads, and it was just a treacherous journey, a 4-day journey over the Hindu Kush Mountains.
A 4-day journey.
Yeah, and then I ended up in a place called Jabal Saraj, which is incredible. I was living in a mud hut for 4 months and covering the war.
A mud hut.
A mud hut for 4 months.
For 4 months.
Yes, and covering the war, and you could see the Taliban. And at one point, there was this tower, and we had gone up to the tower, and you could see the Taliban positions. You can actually see the Taliban soldiers. And we walked up the tower, and then we walked down the tower.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes later, the tower blew up. It was hit.
Oh my God!
And we were just missed it. And then we came under a shell attack as ourselves.
Did you? The mud house?
No. At this point, I was next to that tower. I was near the front lines, near Jabal Saraj, north of Kabul. Right.
Okay.
I can tell you about when it was liberated, when the Taliban fell. That was quite another story. But I tell you one thing though, because I'm going to bring it back to Goa, which is that when I was living in that mud hut, I had a satellite telephone. There were no cell phones or anything like that, but I had a satellite phone, and I was able to talk to my Indian girlfriend every night. Okay, who's now now my wife, right?
Yeah.
Of 23 years, right? So, but I would call her every night, right, from Afghanistan, from Jabal Saraj, and then I would tell her about the war, and she said to me, when it's finished, your reward is going to be coming to Goa. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you to a place called Goa. Wow. And I said, well, I look forward to it, right? And then, so when the war ended, I came to Goa, and so it was just like such a contrast between the war in Afghanistan to coming here. Oh, well, and so it was,
I can understand.
And we rented mopeds, scooters, and we went once, and we kind of went from Palolem to Arambol, and just really enjoyed Goa in 2002. And from there, we fell in love with Goa and ended up moving here.
It was probably a lot greener back in 2002 with lesser nightclubs and pubs and bars.
It was a lot of fun, I'll tell you that much.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, look, what gives you the motivation? You know that you're going to, as a journalist, you've gone to Afghanistan, you've gone to Colombia, you've gone to Israel, all this war zone cities, traveling 4 days in a Jeep with, where you have to get off, stuff blowing up next to you, and you're just there. What gives you the motivation to do this for so many years?
Well, the thing is about journalism is it's a higher calling, because well, first of all, you get to witness, and from a personal level, you get to witness the great events of our time, right? Not everybody gets to do that.
Events of the time, yeah.
Yes, but in addition, it's a service because you're bearing witness. So you are there to sort of, especially if you're an international correspondent, you're there to tell the story so that people know. And if if there are injustices, or if there are problems, or if there are things that need correcting, and people aren't aware of what needs to be corrected, then there's no way to correct them, right? So as a journalist, you're providing that service.
I feel like it's such an unrecognized and underrated service because, when the defense, so it may be the American defense personnel, when they go in, they've got backup, they've got guns, they've got all the high-end equipment to defend themselves. Journalists really don't have much. They're just going in there, they're filming. That's what I'd assume.
You're right, and I have had a lot of my colleagues have been, not a lot, but some of them have died. People who worked for me, people who worked with me. One of the photographers who I was with in Afghanistan, he's a walking advertisement for a flak jacket, a bulletproof vest, because he was during the same time I was there in the war. He was on the ground and he took several bullets to the back, but he was saved by his flak jacket, by his bulletproof vest, and others were not so lucky. Some of my colleagues perished, and some of them were badly injured. So that is true what you just said.
It's a huge, it's a huge commitment to the country, commitment to the society and the world to be able to provide that information, but it has such a huge cost, which is, I think, unrecognized by people. People don't understand that journalist risks their life to kind of get that info to you.
They do.
How many times do you think you were in absolute fear of death? And throughout your
Yeah, a
journey?
few times. A few times. You know, I'll tell you. I just mentioned that shell attack in Afghanistan where, you know, we came under fire, and this is actually kind of a funny story because we had all been trained. They don't send you in without training.
Okay.
It's called hostile environment training.
Okay.
So we had all been trained, you know.
Okay.
And so when we saw the shells coming in, we all hit the ground as we were trained to do, you know, and but then it was over. The attack was over after some time, and then we all stood back up, and I had blood on my face and I had blood on my knees, and they were saying, "Steve, my colleagues, were you hit? What happened?" And what happened is that I was so nervous. The way I hit the ground was just I scraped my knees, right? And then and I was so nervous that I bit my lip.
And you didn't even realize that.
I didn't realize. So I call that self-inflicted war wounds. Yeah. So,
Well, you know what? A bit of a lip bite and knee blood is the least of your worries when there's little bombing going on next year.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow.
So there were instances like that, yeah. But you know, most of the time was, you know, we also did a lot of other. With the AP, you cover everything. So you know, I covered. I got to know Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, the founder of Singapore, and
Really?
Yeah, several times I interviewed him, and I've interviewed some great people. You know, Jimmy Carter, Shimon Peres.
Oh, wow. Why Indonesia?
Gabriel Garcia Marquez is one of my favorite interviews. Yeah.
What were you doing down in Jakarta in Indonesia?
Well, at that point, it was called Chief of Southeast Asia Services. I was heading up the Southeast Asia region for the Associated Press. So I was first based. It was the same job, but first they based me in Singapore, and then they based me in Jakarta. So Jakarta was a fantastic place to live, you know, because you could you know, once a month we'd head over to Bali, you know. It's a wonderful place, you know, like Goa, you know.
It's very similar to
yeah,
Goa. It's very
exactly.
similar to Goa.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, and then I had some very good stories there too. Like there was the country of East Timor achieved its independence while I was there, so I flew over to East Timor and covered the independence celebrations of East Timor,
Nice.
and you know, and just it was a lot. I mean, you know, but during those times when I was in Jakarta and when I was in Singapore, I ended up spending a lot of time in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. So I would like go between Jakarta and Islamabad, Kabul, Islamabad, Singapore. You know, that was how it was. Yeah.
Now, just, you know, the war between Israel and Gaza is still going on, and it was probably when, you know, when you were working back then as well. You said you worked in Israel and Gaza for 6 years.
6 years. 6 years.
So what is happening now, and what was happening?
Well, I mean, we're in a very good period at the moment as we speak because a ceasefire was reached. So
I read that in the
yes,
newspapers.
so that's a huge news. It's enormous news, and I hope it just it comes to fruition. Obviously, there should be. Israel has already started pulling back its positions. Yeah. There's massive celebrations in Gaza right now. Right. I think within the next few hours we'll see the hostages released. We should, if all goes well. Mm-hmm. But you know, so now it's a moment of relief. It's a moment of celebration. But the hard work is just beginning because you know, we have to figure. Well, you have to figure out how you're going to rebuild Gaza because it's been leveled. Okay, you have to figure out you know, how. You know, whether or not Israel's demands for Hamas disarmament will ever take place, and whether or not you know, there could be any sort of a broader Middle East peace now that this has been achieved, because you still have the problem of, you know, Hamas intransigence on the one hand, and in the Israeli right-wing government, which has not been amenable to any kind of peace moves. So you have the extremists on both sides that are definitely hurting the prospects.
The aggression is temporarily stopped. The ideology hasn't, basically.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So is it the same war which was being fought when you were covering in Israel and Gaza?
Well, I covered a lot of big stories when I was there, like, you know, the death of Yasser Arafat. I covered the Israeli withdrawal from Gaza in 2005.
So they were doing something similar back then as well?
Yes, there were other conflicts were there. I mean, I was there during the the Intifada times as well, where there was a lot of violence. There were a lot of stories during my 6 years there, and yes, it is one of the world's most intractable conflicts. So let's see now. A lot of the equations have all changed now. In terms of you've seen a lot of the a lot of the bad actors, have been weakened. Like Hezbollah is no longer the force that it used to be. Iran's ability to sort of meddle in the region has been taken out largely. And now, of course, you see the decimation of Hamas. But at the same time, Israel's standing has taken a tremendous beating, and you still have these sort of right-wing forces in Israel that are keeping them peaceful.
Worldwide, though, yeah.
Yeah.
So, when Russia started the war with Ukraine, there were massive amount of sanctions were placed on Russia. What similar sanctions placed on Israel by the West as well?
They're just starting now.
Heard of them.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, Israel is in recent months taken some economic hits.
Okay.
And so a lot of the world, like certain European countries, have just taken the step of recognizing the state of Palestine, and so Israel does find itself quite isolated at the moment. But now we're in this with this ceasefire happening. We'll see what happens, because now there are some opportunities for there to be some breakthroughs on a lot of different fronts. But
interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. So that was quite something. The journalism background. I didn't expect that. So let's dive into construction now. So what was the inspiration behind going from journalism to construction? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, so it's in my blood. Okay, so I come from a family of real estate, and we've been doing that starting with my grandparents in Arizona, going back 100 years, right?
Wow.
So it's only natural for us. So when we moved to Goa in the end of 2011, we moved to Goa, right? And and it was for us. We opened up a newspaper, right? It's called Goa Street. So it was a weekly newspaper, and it ran for about 5 years. But while we were running the newspaper, we sort of said, maybe we should do something in real estate, because we had actually done real estate before as well, because we had been buying and selling and renovating homes in other places while I was a journalist. We did that in Jerusalem, and we did that in Atlanta, Georgia. And so for us, it was like, we decided, let's do something. Let's do a fantastic project. We just decided that we want to build like the villa of the century. That was what our goal was, So we looked and looked and looked for land. And at one point I found this land. It was in Sangolda, the village of Sangolda, and it had 20 coconut palms on it, right?
Wow.
And so we took the architect there, and we said, what do you think? And then we said, you know what? We're not cutting these trees. We're not going to cut the trees. So instead of cutting the trees to build the villa, we built the villa around the trees. Oh, wow. So the coconut trees dictated the design of the home. Wow. So that's why you see it. So the home is called Villa in the Palms.
Wow.
And you see coconut palms jetting out of the pool.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of the swimming pool?
Out of the swimming pool.
That's very interesting.
Yes. And you see coconut trees beside the bedroom in a courtyard. So little holes made for coconut trees that are going up, so throughout there's, the whole design is around the trees, right? So it's very unique. Wow. And it uses the style that I call neo-tropical, which is it's contemporary but also very warm, using a lot of warm elements like laterite stone and teak wood, lots of lush landscaping, floor-to-ceiling windows, high ceilings. So this is where we started this neo-tropical. So Villa in the Palms ended up winning a bunch of awards, right? Nice. And so ArchDaily, which is like the Bible of international architecture coverage, right? So they at one point did a story of the top 80 homes of the world. It was in 2018.
Wow. And
they chose only 2 in India. And our Villa in the Palms was made the list of the. There was one. I think there was one in Ahmedabad in ours. Yeah. So so we started with a big bang, like the universe, right? So, and then after that, we decided to do another project, which is called the Terraces, and that is it's 8 villas and 4 condos in Palermo, right? Again, using this neotropical style, same kind of a style, and that we have given possession of a couple years ago, and now we're currently giving possession of another project called Coco Bahia, which is. Yeah, which is Coconut Bay in Portuguese, right? It's also in Palermo. Okay.
Again, a very similar theme, I'd assume.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same kind of a look. Again, using a lot of natural elements, the high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, and I also these villas. Sometimes we call it California style because they do have this sort of this vibe, very contemporary but also warm. And so, a lot of our buyers, you do participate in what we call the rental pool, because we have a sister company called Anokha Sands, which it's a hospitality wing. But many of our buyers are also using them as primary homes, right? So they just, live there.
Nice.
So it's kind of a mix. And now, our latest project that we're starting is called Q Vagator. Q Vagator.
Okay.
And Q Vagator is it's another 16 villas, and it's incredibly located, okay, because we're just between the JW Marriott Hotel and the W in Vagator.
Oh, wow.
And walking distance to the beach, walking distance to the Chapora River, and walking distance to all the restaurants and clubs and shops.
That is so convenient.
But at the same time, we are in a wooded enclave. So you go down this lane to get to our plot, and it's completely green. And so when you go there, you see peacocks and you see monkeys and you see trees. And some of our villas are going to have, we're only about 200 meters from the Chapora River. So 6 of the 16 villas are going to have, from the top floor terrace, are going to have Chapora River views, right? Because these structures are ground plus 3 and with fully furnished with an elevator. And so the top floors have 2 different terraces, one with seating and one with a jacuzzi. And there's also an indoor section on the top floor with a bar and a powder room, right? So I'll just tell you that, the day that we acquired the property, we decided to go from the sub-registrar to the plot. And when we arrived at the plot, there was a peacock in the middle of the plot in full display.
Oh, wow.
You see all the feathers, and we took that as you know what, this is going to go well, this project. It was like an auspicious sign.
I think you have another award-winning, breathtaking property on the way.
Yes,
imagine
hopefully.
living in one of those, and you just see a peacock every morning, and then you look left, you've got the Chapora River.
Yes.
Walk down the lanes in the evening, get a nice drink. I mean,
I'm just imagining, at Q Vagator, what you're going to be able to do is, for instance, you have Olive Restaurant, which is like a 10-minute walk, and it's overlooking the cliff. You have that Vagator Cliff, 10-minute walk, with all those restaurants overlooking the sea, in the Arabian Sea. So if you could go there, have some dinner or have a snack, and go to the beach, swim a little bit, and then walk back to your villa. Take the elevator up to the top floor, have a little evening cocktail overlooking the river. And it's ideal. It's like a dreamlike, Wow. So that should be ready. December 2027 is the possession date for that. And so we just got, a couple months ago, we got the RERA certification, and now we're taking bookings, and they've already started. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very unique property in Goa. I don't think Goa has seen anything close to what you're trying to offer now.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about, now you've already told me that you've had a huge family background of construction back in Arizona. So what did your family do? Were they doing real estate? Were they doing construction? Were they doing
both? My dad and my brothers, they're involved in Phoenix. Okay, my parents, I believe they're the largest. They own the most amount of land of anyone in downtown Phoenix, because they're largely focused in downtown Phoenix. And my brothers are sort of have this philosophy of, because in Arizona that
They're
we have
builders too?
They're builders, yeah.
Alright.
Two of my brothers, yeah. There's 4 boys in my family, so three of the 4 are in real estate. But so in Phoenix, there's this concept of it's called ranch houses. Okay. So it's a desert. So traditionally, the houses just spread out all on one floor, okay, across a lot of land. That's how they build it, because it's this desert, right? Yeah. So. But a lot of people, first of all, it's not very sustainable or environmentally friendly, right? So there's a large movement, in places like Phoenix to go a little bit more vertical, and so it's more sustainable, and also you get a little bit of that sort of New York style life. It's like sort of a loft kind of a feel, and you can walk to restaurants, and you can. So, but the issue is that Phoenix never really had a downtown that had that kind of a thing. Yeah. But that's changing, and my brothers are at the forefront of changing that, right? So that people will come live in downtown, right? And so they build housing there, houses and apartments. Makes sense. And and nowadays, there are grocery stores, and downtown is sort of having a revival. So
your family is currently changing the skyline of
yes. I would say that's fair to say.
Stay in Phoenix, Arizona, because they've got a huge, massive Intel. They have a huge Intel plant in Arizona. And is it in Phoenix though?
I'm not sure actually. Yeah.
Because I think the Intel plant is driving a lot of international people to come in and work there. Mm-hmm. That could be one of the reasons in rising real estate in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, Arizona is a very attractive place. It is hot.
It's got the canyons, right?
It's got the Grand Canyon, right? It's got green country, the pine country, and it's got desert. Wow. And a place like Phoenix is very hot in the summer, but then 8 months of the year is idyllic. So we have these people, they're called snowbirds, where the people from the east and the Midwest come to Arizona during the summer to escape the snow, So and it's very fast growing, and it's changing landscape in Phoenix.
How's the landscape of Phoenix compared to the landscape in Goa? Would you think Phoenix is as green as Goa, or do you think
no?
It's more
it's desert, right? No, Goa is more green. Especially now, in the monsoons and after the monsoons, it's very, very different. We can get into a little bit of the differences in the construction as well. Sure, yeah. But I would say that the very, very different climates, because Phoenix is known for being extremely dry, and it is very dry, and which is the opposite here. This is one of the wettest places around, right? Yeah. So and that definitely affects the construction, because
does. Yeah. We struggle 4 months a year wherein it's pouring rain. The rain here, it's not like drizzling. It's not like the rain in the UK or the Ireland where it's just like drizzling and you can still work. It's just pouring rain in Goa. You can't do anything. Yeah.
And so when it comes to roofing, in Arizona, I think the big challenge is the heat, right? Yeah. And here to some degree as well, but not as much. But here, I would say for us at least, is making sure the proper waterproofing.
I think waterproofing is the biggest challenge in a place like Goa, because the rain is just mental.
It's crazy.
Why wouldn't you work in Phoenix, where you have such a big background? You've got a huge land banks. Your brothers are there. The infrastructure is there for you to kind of just go and get, and probably the money's a lot better than here as well.
Well, I would say, remember I told you that when I was young, I wanted to sort of like be part of the world of the Latino world, and now I sort of want to be part of the subcontinent, and it's just, I've always had that drive, but I feel that Goa has something very unique, because in the United States, I would say we have several thousand Goas, whether it be La Jolla or Martha's Vineyard or New Orleans or, Las Vegas. I mean, there are so many places that you go for a holiday in the United States. There's literally thousands, right? In India, which has 4 times the population, you only have one Goa, right? Only where else in India can you just go and drink beer on the beach and go to a beach shack and wear your bathing suit and Goa is very unique in India, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then you have a situation with 7% growth, and that basically translates into people who are poor becoming middle class, people who are becoming middle class becoming upper middle class.
Your buyers, you'll never run out of buyers, basically.
You're never going to run out of buyers, and who doesn't want a piece of Goa, right? If
That's
you
true.
like,
That's true.
every Indian and their mother wants a piece of Goa, right? So that's what we do, and we're trying to provide that in something unique. And we're called Anokha, which is, for anyone, I don't know Hindi, but for anyone, meaning one of a kind, right? One of a kind, right? One of a kind. So that's what we go by. That's our driving principle, is to be one of a kind. Yeah.
So obviously, the villa in the Palms was Anokha.
Yes.
So, what was it like winning the award? What was the intention behind Villa in the Palms? Was it just a passion project? What was there, like? Was it to sell? What was the idea behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I think our idea was since that was our first project in Goa. Yeah. The idea was to make a splash and to do something that no one had done before, and to do something very special, right? So, I think we achieved that, and right now we ended up selling it, right? Okay. But right now it's run as a guest house.
Nice.
And it is sort of, actually we had 4 bedrooms, but they turned what we had envisioned as the family room, they turned that into a 5th suite, the people who bought it, right? So now it's 5 suites, and it comes with 2 Mercedes that shuffle you around Goa. It comes with private chef, and I hear that it's quite popular among the Bollywood crowd when they come and stay in Goa.
Yeah,
and
you're
also
happy with the turnout.
Yeah, and if you go on Google, I mean, the reviews are just like phenomenal, so people are really enjoying that place, So
At any point were you just tempted to just keep it and make
I
it
would have
your
loved it.
home?
I would have loved that. I would have loved that. It's a really cool place,
Right.
But we didn't build it for ourselves, Right. So yeah.
Right. So tell me one thing. Now you've seen constructions in both places, right? In America and Goa. How is the construction different in both places? What are the challenges and the advantages of construction?
I think if you I was talking to my younger brother this morning about this issue, and I think he did pinpoint it. His name is Benjamin, right? And he was saying, the labor costs makes a huge difference in everything you do, right? Because when I told him that we build slabs, right? We do RCC roofs, and that's what it's made of. He goes, well, we could never do that in America. It's way too expensive, the labor for that, And so what they do is, you're going to see, like for walls, you see wood, and you see insulation, right? And here in Goa, at least, you see laterite, right? But there, you couldn't afford to pay people to put stone by stone by stone by stone. So it would just be way too expensive, right? Now, I feel it's a little bit unfortunate though, because when we have those wildfires in California, if those houses were not made out of primarily wood and insulation, they would not all burn down. The houses here would never burn down like that,
No, just wouldn't, because it's all steel and concrete.
Yes, it's steel and concrete and stone. And here in Goa, laterite stone. Lots and
lots of laterite stone.
Lots and lots of laterite stone. So you do, but there's a lot of differences, I think that, first of all, the codes are very strictly enforced in the United States, and here, so that's what, when you buy in Goa, you really, because of the fact that it's a little bit more haphazard, that it's very important for a buyer to go with a reputable, builder, because you got to rely on the builder to provide the quality. You cannot rely on the government to ensure it, right?
Yeah, so it's very different here, isn't it?
Yeah. So here, if you're a savvy buyer, you're going to go with a very reputable builder. That's very, very important, and so in just things like, supply lines, I think are much stronger there, in the United States, where supplies will be delivered to the site when they're supposed to be delivered, and here you're relying on local markets, and you could always say, listen, I can't build those walls today because there's no laterite on the market, or things like that, right? So
it does happen. There's no sand in the market.
That happens, but we try to avoid that by just stockpiling and making sure that we have a lot of
having more reliable reliable vendors.
More reliable vendors, and also keeping the materials that we need on site. And the other thing we try to take a lot of the American traditions and implement them here.
Okay.
For instance, we don't like to start a project until pretty much every drawing is done.
Okay.
We do not like draw as you go. We like drawings done, then you start.
I think that's something that is very different.
Yes.
To what most of the builders in India or Goa would be doing.
Yes.
Because most of the even architectural practices would be like draw as you go. We'll give you drawing step by step.
Right.
I think it just gives you such a good perspective on the whole project if you have all drawings set.
You should know it's much better to have that vision in your mind at the beginning before you even break ground.
Makes sense.
And of course that doesn't mean you have to be inflexible. For instance, if you want to talk about roofs, we can always talk about, because we have a plan for our roof right now. But I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about what because we can still consider changes, and we're open to the best.
I'll run you through each and every point of what we do and everything. So the cost of construction in America would definitely be high than what the cost of construction in India is. Is it just because of the labor, or is it because of the material as well?
I think both. I think both. But then again, there can be all sorts of hidden costs, because if you don't skilled labor, I've listened to some of your podcasts. You've talked about this before. Skilled labor is absolutely essential, because if you're building something with unskilled labor and you have to do it twice, then that's not a savings, right? And so
that is the biggest challenge in the market. I've spoken about it in the last 2 podcasts actually. That because everyone that I've spoken to is from construction, and everyone has the same challenges. That say for America example, like you'd have these guys who are trained professionals. They've got schools of carpentry. They've got schools for everything, right? They've got schools for being a builder as well. They've got building management, all of that. When here we don't have any of that. So, when you do pay that guy like what, $25, $30, $40 an hour, he's going to give you that level of performance and the quality work that you desire. But, that kind of value will not be justified in India, I think, because you will not, I don't think you would get that level of performance in construction from the general laborers that we're currently working with.
But that's why you need incredible supervision,
100%.
And you need to invest in a strong supervisory team, and it cannot just be one guy running around the site. It's got to be multiple people, and there has to be a daily plan, and it has to be structured, and it has to be closely supervised at all times. So
we also struggle with that, in entirety. We don't get skilled. We train them, but to begin with, nobody in India gets skilled labor as, educated skilled laborers who've got degrees in this kind of stuff. So we run a pretty tight engineering team with standard SOPs, and everything goes as per protocol. There's QA, QC checklists, and everything has to go as per the standard, operating procedure. At the end of the project, there's a QA, QC checklist. So on that front, I think that is what needs to be done to maintain that level of quality.
Absolutely, and you can't just leave it to chance.
You can't. So you said you use a lot of stone here. In America, you use just insulation and boards.
Yes, those are the walls. Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot more use of prefabricated materials in the United States as well. Okay. So. And we've actually had people come to us and say, "Why don't you try to do that here?" And so I think some parts of India they are doing that now, the prefab stuff, and I'm sure you know more about it than I do. But for us, especially with our new Vagator project, we do feel that because of that it's so close to the ocean, that using the slabs and the cement is most durable, and for us because of that. The issues of the humid air and the salty air and all that. So we want to make sure that we're using materials that accommodate the environment.
Right. No, you're right though that as you said, Benjamin said we could never cast slabs in America because it's too expensive to do that. The steel, the concrete, the labor
Oh,
to
no.
be able to do that. Obviously, for commercial buildings they have to, but for residential homes, my aunt currently built a house in America, and it was just like 3 months that the entire house was built. It was all come to the site, assemble. I think the foundation was concrete, and after that it was just walls and just prefab assemble on site.
Yes.
Everything made in factory. Entire beautiful looking 4-bedroom house with the yard, with the parking, with every accessory and air conditioning that you require in Florida, done in 3 months.
It's incredible.
So,
yeah.
That's the speed of construction. That's
Yeah.
why the labor is expensive, and they have
Yes,
optimized
yes.
on how they construct very smartly. I think that is what we in Skyline are trying to kind of bring to go. We see that labor is going to get expensive in India eventually. Things are going to get more expensive as the economy is growing, and you've probably seen it over the last 12 years that you're here. It's not as cheap as it used to be.
Not at all. It's
Especially
much more expensive.
a
Yeah.
little bit more expensive. So what we essentially do is that we build structural system roofs the same way they're built in America, right?
But you're not using the ply. You're using a cement for the base.
We're using a fiber cement board.
What kind of cement board? Say that again. Fiber
board.
cement. Okay.
So the cement is the base material, and then the
How thick is that?
they start at 12 mm.
Okay.
You've got 14, 16, 18, 20.
Okay.
They go up to 25 millimeters. So
Okay. Because in the States, I think it's mostly the base is mostly ply, I think.
So you do have that option too. So I can use marine ply of 18 millimeters, or I can use cement boards of 18 millimeters. The cost factor with the cement boards is a lot lower. Marine ply is a little bit more expensive, so people kind of avoid using it.
Okay.
But the whole idea is, now correct me if I'm wrong, in America they have system roofs again, which is basically the truss, the wooden truss, then they'll have a waterproof deck, then they'll have on the deck they'll have a waterproof membrane running, then
correct.
they'll have secondary fabrication or secondary woodwork, and then they'll have the tiles or the shingles, right?
Correct.
And underneath they'll have insulation and then soffit and the ceiling.
Correct. That's correct.
So essentially that is what we're doing here. And we did a very interesting project recently in Moira, wherein we executed 8 villas in a similar manner. So we replaced the wood with the steel.
Okay.
Because wood is not feasible. It's too expensive to work with in India especially. So the metal is very well treated. It's grinded off, all the rust is removed, and we use this really high-end paint systems called epoxy mastic. It's the same paint used in marine ships.
Really?
So no matter how much the
no
salt
corrosion,
content, there's going to be no corrosion for over 25 years. We make sure it's coated well, all the ends are closed, and that's our primary truss work. On top of that is a waterproof deck, or the cement board or marine ply. It depends on the budget. A lot of this parts and components in the system are plug in and plug out systems. We can kind of customize the systems the way we want them to according to the customer's needs. So we've got the deck, we've got the waterproofing, and then we do another layer of MS structural work, which is basically a tile support.
Okay.
And in between this, we shove insulation, which is PIR.
Okay.
So I think.
And what's the top?
On
the top level.
We put
ceramic,
we've got an array of tiles. We've
Okay.
got white clay ceramic tiles. We've
Okay.
got concrete tiles. We've got tiles coming in from Spain. Massive big Roman tiles.
But you won't use Mangalore tiles, and
I
that's
don't
it.
use Mangalore tiles personally because.
Okay.
I don't have anything against Mangalore tiles. It's a brilliant product.
Right.
I'll go into why I don't want to use Mangalore tiles.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is pretty much the system, and as you said, insulation is a big factor in Phoenix. I think it's often overlooked in India, the insulation bit, because yes, your laterite walls are going to be very well insulated for the walls, but your concrete slab
takes a lot of heat.
Isn't. So one bad thing, yes, it's very strong. It's got an 80-year lifespan. It's really good to have a concrete slab in a place like Goa. In functionality wise, I think it's a little bit on the back. Behind side compared to the system roofs, because with the concrete will always retain and radiate heat.
Correct.
It will always retain and radiate heat. The speed of construction is a lot lower, you know. So going forward, maybe another 5 years down the line, maybe we won't have this much time or resources to build RCC slabs.
Yes. It's an art form to cast a proper RCC slab.
It's an art form. And yes, exactly. The design flexibility, right? Your design is a bit restricted. You can't build domes and curves in RCC. You can, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get that level of labor. So recently we did a project in Aldi Adegawa where the roof literally goes above and beyond. The roof literally goes from the ground floor on the way top, tuck, 3 layers, and all the way down to the bottom.
It's like a shell.
It's like a shell. So it's a structural steel roof, and then we've got shingles on top of it. And on the inside, we've got the soffit and the insulation. So this to be able to achieve in concrete, I don't know if that makes sense, you know.
I don't know if you even could.
You could, yeah. You know, to cast vertical concrete, you just wouldn't get that level of finishing.
Yeah.
So this is what we are kind of trying to bring to the Goan market right now. We've done one massive project of 8 villas. I'll show you the video. I think you'd really like it.
Okay, I'll take a look.
And then we are doing another project for a very reputable builder. We're doing 4 villas for them. And then we're coming up with another 16 villas. We've got 26 villas lined up after that. So this is picking up because it's way faster. And the architects can play with the design you know, a bit more than they can play with concrete.
Yeah.
And we are trying to kind of work on these basic fundamentals. Is great insulation, heat and sound both. That it has to be, you know, very well insulated roof. Second is that 2-layer water protection. So no matter what happens, we've got a membrane water protection. So it's very different than crystalline waterproofing, which is usually used on concrete. So the membrane very rarely fails. And we've got 2 layers. The tile acts itself as a waterproofing barrier. And then we've used world-in-class insulation. It's called PIR. You must have heard of those PU foams. They spray insulation.
Yeah,
it's a similar kind, but the thermal conductivity is absolute. It's 0.02. So you could hold a torch gun on one side, and the surface temperature on the other side would still remain the same.
Oh wow!
So when used in a roof, you have this really efficient power-saving roofs.
You save a lot on AC.
And now recently we are also in talks with integrating solar panels in our systems. Not about the systems, but in our systems. So these homes or luxury villas would eventually be like electrical powerhouses on both saving end and creating power end.
Yeah, and you're saving money and you're also helping to save the planet, which is both good. Both of those things are very good.
And you know, there's always been that hesitation on the designer's part to integrate roof with solar because it often looks ugly and it's always popping out, and nobody wants solar panels on top of their luxury villas. But we are kind of working on a system where we can integrate both, and it looks absolutely delightful.
That's a very good innovation.
Yeah. We are
because we need to move more to solar.
Greener, I mean, look, the power hikes are not going to stop. Coal is going to always be expensive. All the fossil fuels are going to keep getting expensive. We have to move towards a greener environment.
Yeah, and we believe in the same thing, sustainable architecture and sustainable construction. So
let me get back to your question on Mangalore tiles, right?
Yes, okay.
I absolutely love Mangalore tiles. There's nothing wrong with them, right? Mangalore tiles on a Portuguese home. You've probably lived in a Portuguese home, or you've seen a Portuguese home.
Yeah.
200 years old, the wood, the tiles, nothing's wrong with them. It's perfectly fine. No leaks, no dents. But what's happened now is because of the extreme competitive market, the quality of the Mangalore tiles which you get today is not at par, which I would want my customer to have. It's not baked right. There's first quality, second quality, third quality, fourth quality in Mangalore tiles. You don't know which one you're getting. If they're not of the right bake, they will crack easy. If they crack, the water's going to seep in. It's going to create leakages. if it's not baked tile, and if it's a very porous tile, so Bangalore tile often will absorb 50% water, right? Back in the day, for the Portuguese houses, there used to always be people maintaining. There used to be always a maintenance season before the rains. They would go up, they replace the tiles.
Yes, every year.
Every year, it's like a ritual that they have to do. But today, people don't have the time to do that. They don't want to do that. So what happens with the Bangalore tile? It absorbs water. As soon as it absorbs water, it creates a surface for algae and moss to grow on it. Now, me as a person, I love the aged effect when it
looks
ages.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks really nice when it ages. But a lot of people are not a big fans of that. They want this red-looking roof throughout their life. It needs to stay like that. That's where tiles like ceramic tiles and all of those come into place, where they have a way longer lifespan. They don't absorb water.
They don't change color.
Yeah, they don't change. They've got a breaking point of around 250, 350 kilonewton. So you can walk on these.
Yeah.
And nothing will happen. High quality Mangalore tiles are still Goa's pride, and I think
you've got to find the high quality ones.
Yeah. No, we did a project recently in Aldana, Kitla, where we sourced this really good tiles from Chikmagalur. You know where that is?
I've heard of it. Yeah,
it's next to Bangalore.
So you're talking about Mangalore tiles.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Good. I want to talk to you about that.
These Bangalore tiles are literally like 2 inches thick.
Okay.
And my technicians on site, for the ridge joints and all that, you have to cut the tiles and then install them. My technicians called me thrice from the site that our grinding machines have burnt, but the tile won't cut. And they sent me a video when he was trying to cut the tile, and because the heat was so much that there's flames coming out of his grinding machine, the tile still won't cut. It was literally that strong. So, and now
that's a good thing.
After the rain, it's aged a little. It's starting to look a little aged, and that's what the customer wants also. The man is from Netherlands and the woman's from Bangalore.
Right.
They want the aged old roof tiles. So they're happy with it, but everyone has a different taste. Some builders don't want it to age. They want kind of like a more the more artificial looking tile for a very long time.
Yeah. We'd probably be more in the former category, like if you go to the terraces, Orville and the Palms, you'll see, like I call it the Ivy League because we have this, vines growing everywhere, and we have like a lot of exposed laterite on the inside and the outside, and you see all this greenery growing over it. And of course, the go-on rule that at least half the roofs have to be sloping. So we have a lot of we have quite a big slope on many of our roofs, and that provides these very high ceilings on the top floor because we have a very strong slope, and when we use a lot of skylights, and we really believe in turning our roof, using our roofs. Any roof that is not sloped is a beautiful entertainment space for us, so we put bars, we put jacuzzis, we put plants, we put pergolas. We turn our roofs into like some of the primest spots in the villa, You should come take a look.
I will.
Yeah.
So Steve, construction, as you know, is a very competitive market. Real estate is very competitive. There is probably 500 builders in Goa right now who are trying to build villas. How do you stay on top of this competition, and what is Anokha offering that others are not? Yes.
Well, we try to do it, as I said before, through actually being Anokha, living up to our name, right? It's about, for us, first of all, location, which is, so important, in real estate, and especially with our new project, Q Vagatories. Literally, I always say it's the trendiest spot in India because the Anjana, Vagator, Asagao, belt is just filled with so many interesting things now, like these old stately Portuguese houses in Asagao that have been turned into restaurants and lifestyle stores. So you could argue that it's like the trendiest belt in India at the moment. So that's why we chose this place, walking distance to the beach. But also just sort of our philosophy of, the same sense of integrity and honesty, and that drove me to journalism.
Trust, the trust amongst people.
The trust aspect, as I try to, make that part of what we do at Anokha Estates. It's the same philosophy of integrity, and so I mean, I changed careers, but I didn't change my values.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
In recent times, that the real estate values have gone haywire. I wouldn't know the exact figures, but it's risen substantially from what it used to be maybe couple of years ago, and what you saw at TES is maybe a very different situation than what you're seeing at Q Wagator. How have the trends shifted?
Oh, you're saying compared to the ones we were doing in Palermo in
general, how has the market evolved over the years?
Well, first of all, this is so much more on offer, as you've said, right? Yeah. But so one of the things that we're concerned about is we don't really want Goa to become a concrete jungle like Mumbai or Delhi, right? So there are some built-in breaks to that. For instance, it's very hard to find clear title property here. Most of the land is still designated no development zone or orchard or agriculture, something like 85%. So, and then of the remaining 15%, most of those are not clear title, right? So there are some built-in breaks to overdevelopment here, but we actually are very, we don't want it to become, overdeveloped, because we think that if Goa loses its beauty, then charm, people, if it loses its charm, then we won't have any more buyers, right? Yeah. So for us, like sometimes we'll get offered this land that has been either they'll say, oh, you can convert it. It's orchard land, but you can convert it. Or people will say to us, well, we just converted it last year and we don't touch it because we don't want to be part of that. It's like if the land is not slated for development, settlement land slated for
it's not meant for we
don't want to touch it, right? Or if someone says to us, go build on the side of a hill and remove all the trees from the, we saw we did it, fill in the ponds. We kept the trees, right? So
you don't want to do that.
We don't want to deal with any of that. So I do feel that between the strong demand for people wanting homes here, it's still a very good investment for the buyer, right? And I do think there's always going to be short-term corrections in the market. Yeah. It's always going to happen, right? In any market, right? But I do think that the long-term prospects for villas in Goa it remains very highly positive, because of the fact that you just have such a high demand in such a fast-growing country.
Fair enough. So because I speak to a lot of real estate guys. Currently, I think Goa is experiencing a slight dip. Maybe, I don't know. Is that true? Or is
I think
true?
It is. I think that's true. Okay. Actually, if you had told me this, asked me that, 6 months ago, then I would have said for sure true. And now I would say that maybe the correction is at the end. I feel.
You think so?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. But then you have to look at the macro trends, what's happening in India, the Indian economy as a whole, and you have to look at what's, but I think for now what we're seeing is it's starting to pick up again.
I think so. I think it saw a little bit of a dip from March or Feb till now, and now it's just kind of going back at it. It's booming. I think everything is getting back to normal now. I think so. But I remember a few years ago, I took a trip to southern Spain, the Costa del Sol, right? And there was kilometer after kilometer after kilometer of empty houses because they way overbuilt it. And they were giving these houses away. You could go, you could get one for maybe half the price of what it had cost a couple years earlier, right? And because it was this way too much demand and not enough supply, right? So, but what happened though is, and then at that time I was examining the market. I was just on a learning, to learn. I saw that Marbella, the village of Marbella in southern Spain, was as expensive as it always was. It did not suffer any correction whatsoever, even though all the outlying areas had suffered a correction. But when you're in the most prime spot, you sort of insulate yourself
from these corrections, you know.
Right.
So
No, I think, that would have been my next question is that everybody's seen the potential of real estate in Goa, and everybody's there. There's people from Bombay, Delhi, all the big cities, big builders coming into Goa and having massive, huge housing developments. So do you worry that there's going to be too much supply and not enough demand, or it's going to affect it's going to affect the people who are doing a good job in construction by lowering the cost?
Yeah, okay, there's always that risk, you know, but that's why we always come back to this whole idea of Anokha, right? Which is, you know, for us at Cuvagator, we can walk to the beach and you can look at the Chapora River, right? Those are two very unusual things that you know, that make our project, you know, quite special and Anokha, right? So if someone comes to me right now and says, I've got this square plot or rectangular plot, it could be a nice village somewhere, but it's you know, I will ask, is there a view?
Yeah, I know.
You know, can I see a river? Can I see the forest? You know, if it doesn't have a USP, then I think you will still sell it. Yeah. You will, but not so easily. You know, so I think that it's those USPs are really important now, especially as the market becomes more competitive.
Edge or the entire market. So Steve, primarily, who is buying the Anokha properties? Is it people from Goa? Is it people from Bombay? Is it people from outside of India? Who are you catering to?
It's a cross section, okay. So you know, we just sold a few of our villas at Cuvagator, and one of them is from the UK, another one from Australia, right? We have from some of our other projects, we've sold to a condo to the managing editor of the Hindustan Times. We sold a villa to the CEO of Network 18, to the CEO of Being Human. We sold another CEO of a power company, right? Wow. So we have these really high-powered buyers, you know, in some of our projects. Goan families, believe it or not, buying our products, you know.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. So you have, you know, people from, you know, a lot of NRIs, people from Delhi. We have people from Hyderabad, Mumbai, Bangalore. So yeah, we're getting a very nice group of people.
Diverse
people. And yeah, absolutely.
And you manage the property after it's sold, or?
So we have a sister company called Anokha Sands, and so that means that for anyone who wants to participate, some people just want to buy it and live in it, right? But some people want to participate in what I call the rental pool. So we have full-time housekeeping, concierge service, on-site cook, can cook you breakfast, and we'll even help assist with, you know, like things like getting a car, or you know, recommending water sports, whatever it is, you know.
Basically like a 5-star hotel.
Yeah, and so, and when you get there in the bathrooms, it's branded. We have Anokha Sands body lotion, Anokha Sands shampoo, Anokha Sands, you know, conditioner. You know, it's like a 5-star hotel, exactly. So. And then what we do is we do a revenue split. So it's a 70, right now we do a 70-30 split where the buyer takes 70% of the revenue and we take 30%. But with that, we pay our salaries and we do all the marketing and, you know.
Yeah, makes sense.
So one thing I was going to do is to tell you, I started to tell you about this earlier, which is how we sort of like started, how we got into Goa, right?
Yeah.
So I told you that was in Afghanistan. My girlfriend at the time, right? You know, and she said, "Come to Goa," and then that was when we started this love affair with Goa, right? In 2002. But her parents, she's Bengali, my wife, my current wife. Back then she was my girlfriend, but her parents moved to Goa 25 years ago.
Oh wow!
So her parents were already in Goa by the time I came after Afghanistan to Goa, right? And so, but then. I was the AP bureau chief in Jerusalem in 2008, and we bought a house in Giri. In Giri, yeah, the village of Giri in Goa, right? So we bought that house, and then we sort of so we had a base here in Goa, and then when I decided that it was time to start a new chapter, and you know, and basically I resigned from the AP, and we figured, you know, Goa's the place, right? And by that time, we had 2 children, right? My 2 sons, Joshua and Arun, and they were raised in Indonesia and Jerusalem. And
you moved out of Goa again?
No. We bought a house in Goa, but we did not live here.
Oh.
Okay, we did not live here. It was 2008. We had a house, but we just visited the house, right? And her parents were here, right? So then, but we had my younger son. One son was born in Singapore, but then we moved to Indonesia, and then the other son was born in Jerusalem. There's 4 members of the family. All 4 of us were born in different countries: Singapore, India, Israel, and the United States. So, but then we moved to Goa at the end of 2011. So we basically raised our children in Goa, right? And then by I think it was around, must have been the end of 2015 when we bought the land for Villa in the Palms.
Makes
So
sense.
if you consider that, it's 10 years, this love affair with Goa and real estate. Even though we're in Goa since end of 2011.
Do your kids still live in Goa?
No, they're 22 and 20, and they both live in Los Angeles. And guess what field my older son is in?
What?
Real estate.
There you go.
He works for a real estate company in Los Angeles. and then my other son, and they both went to USC, University of Southern California. My younger son is still there studying business at USC.
Wow. And where did you meet your wife?
In Singapore. It was a party, the year-end party. At that point, she worked for Dow Jones.
What's that?
Dow Jones was at that point they owned the Wall Street Journal, and so a lot of what she did was sort of selling advertising for the Wall Street Journal. She was based in Singapore, but at that point, Dow Jones and AP, Associated Press, had a partnership.
Right.
So there was a year-end party on Sentosa Island in Singapore. And I met her at that year-end party.
How exciting.
Yeah. And then that was in 2000. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, Steve, before we end this, please tell our viewers where they can find you and how they can, get in touch with Anokha Estates.
Well, you can always look us up on the internet at our website, www.anokhaestates.com, and that's spelled Anokha estates.com.
Lovely.
And then Instagram at Anokha Estates.
Well, Steve, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. From war zones to breathtaking villas, the journey has been amazing. I hope we can do this again sometime, couple of years down the line.
It was a true pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thanks everyone for watching. Now you know where you can find Steve and the brilliant work that his company does. Subscribe Skyline, subscribe Roof Talk. Thanks very much for watching.